Hare Nityananda prabhu ki jai. Shri Krishna Purushottam Sachinandana Gaura Hari ki jai. Go Premanandi Samavita Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Glories to the assembled devotees. Glories and glories to Shri Shri Guru. Gauranga Gana Gotra Galaruharam Gauranga Guru Tamagopyada Kolpa Vriksham Gopala Gada Ratigam Yatisina Gora Govinda Deshikavaram Satatam Namami Dhamma Adhamma Kichuna Bhachina Bhachiya Dileka Kola Hare Premananda Himona Gauranga Hridaya Pariya Kola Bhaja Gauranga 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 Namare Jai Jana Gauranga Bhaje prema vidana parama kumata tasmai jagan mangala mangalaya chaitanya chandraya namo namaste chaitanya chandraya namo namaste chaitanya chandraya namo namaste madhavirapi gopala svikaya kripaya jari Tadaiva Sampraya Kripa Rishi Yustartriya Jana Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunatha Brajabala Gopahimam Vancha Kalpatarubhischa Kripa Sindhu Yaevcha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Anga Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you all very much for being kind to this poor nasty soul and inviting us to come and get some opportunity to get your association. Because when we have a Vaishnava Sangha, and we like to see everybody sometimes, you can turn the camera on. When we have a Vaishnava Sangha, it's not like a class. I never like calling Krishna Katha class, although Srila Prabhupada often called it that. But a class is something you do in the university, in the school, and you get grades and it's like very academic kind of thing. And that doesn't describe Krishna Katha. You may think, well, Krishna Katha is like a sermon in church. That also doesn't inspire us either. It's one standing higher than everybody else and the preacher is pointing the finger and shouting at them or whatever. You may think that Krishna Katha is something like a commercial on television. Sometimes it kind of seems like that in some places. But it's none of those things. In the Bhagavatam 11.330, it said, Parasparam Katanam Pavanam Bhagavadya Mito Rakta Mitas Tushtir Nibrita Mita Atmana. That we should learn how to associate with devotees. And I'm coming here, and I know a couple people here. I know Ananda, don't be angry with know a couple persons here, but not everybody. And this is your Sangha, and you should be very close about it. Actually, what I used to do when we started the pride, ask everybody to come very close, but you'll have a hard time bringing those chairs closer. It's not going to work, because we want to keep a close circle. We want to create a Sangha, and that's the purpose of Krishna Kirtan. Parasparam Kathanam Pavanam Bhagavad Yasa Mito Ratir Mitastushtir Rita Mita Patna. We should learn how to associate with devotees, and we do that by coming together and having Krishna Katha. So for the next 3 days, I'd like to share something with you. I have a desire, if everybody blesses me, to someday make this into a book called Kirtan of our Sampradaya. We'd like to explore some different esoteric things about Kirtan, and perhaps one of the most important aspects of our presentation is not what we're going to answer, but it's the questions. Sometimes good questions are more important than good answers, because they make us think. And it's one thing the last time I went to a program where it was a stage kind of thing like this with seats going up, was with Jamuna, Prabhupada's disciple, in Delhi. They have an amphitheater there at the temple. And she was on the stage and everybody was in the seats. And I could see she felt very uncomfortable. Because she's not a rock star or a personality, but we're trying to share something together. And that's also our purpose today. And we're going to improve the seats. But I'll get it. But we have some questions. What is the kirtan of our Sampradaya? What is it that we chant? What is the prema, and why do we chant that? I have 8 different questions here in front of me. Today I'm hoping we'll get through 4 of them. What is the meaning of first initiation? We were speaking something about this in the car with Prabhuji. Why did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement begin behind closed doors? I mean, is that bona fide? Aren't we supposed to go out on the street and chant and bring in the whole world? Why does it begin behind closed doors? And it's kind of a preview for things to come. Why does it end behind closed doors? And what is the meaning of that kirtan? And the 4th question, which I don't know if we're going to get to today, the song that you just passed out, we'll figure out the answer to that. Something of an answer to this question from that handout. But we need to explain a little more. Why and how is nama-kirtana considered to be a yajna? So let me read something from Srila Prabhupada. Then our question's coming up. What is the particular kirtan of Srimati Radharani? This is something we'll discuss in the next few days. Why do we chant Hare Krishna as our primary mantra and not the names of our Gurudev? Or the names of Nityananda Prabhu, or Gauranga Mahaprabhu, or Radharani? Why in particular the Hare Krishna mantra? What is the connection? This is question number 7. The connection, Hare Krishna. The connection. It must be a great personality. Anybody who carries it, remember wherever they go, it must be something special. What is the connection between chanting and smarana? Is there some problem between the two? Is it that one is more important? Or what is the connection between chanting and smarana according to our acharyas? And the 8th question, what is the prema nam-mala that my Guru Maharaj speaks about in the embankment of separation? So, let's read a little something from Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is Srila Prabhupada's Purport to Madhya Lila, chapter 22, text 113, for those of you who are keeping notes. Prabhupada says, there are many regulated principles in the Shastras and directions given by the spiritual master. These regulated principles should act as servants of the basic principle. That is, one should always remember Krishna and never forget him. This is possible when one chants the Hare Krishna mantra. Therefore, one must strictly chant the Hare Krishna Maha-mantra 24 hours daily. One may have other duties to perform under the direction of the spiritual master, but he must first abide by the spiritual master's order to chant a certain number of rounds. In our Krishna consciousness movement, we've recommended that the neophyte chant at least 16 rounds. This chanting of 16 rounds is absolutely necessary if one wants to remember Krishna and not forget him. Of all the regulated principles, the spiritual master's order to chant at least 16 rounds is most essential. The most essential thing, the most important principle is chanting. But what does it mean? What is the meaning of first initiation? Why did Mahaprabhu's Kirtan begin behind closed doors in Srivas Anga? So we can begin with that. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, I'll just read the translation. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu regularly led congregational chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha-mantra in the house of Srivas Thakur every night for 1 full year. This ecstatic chanting was performed with the doors closed, so that non-believers who came to make fun could not gain entrance. Srila Prabhupada's Purport, chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha-mantra is open to everyone. But sometimes non-believers come to disturb the ceremony of chanting. It is indicated herein that under such circumstances, the temple doors should be closed. Only bona fide chanters should be admitted. Others should not. But when there is large-scale congregational chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha-mantra, we keep our temples open for everyone to join, and by the grace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this policy has given good results. So, I'd like to go now to Madhya Lila, chapter 16 of Chaitanya Bhagavata. Vrindavan Thakur tells the story a little, much more elaborately. And there's actually 2 stories similar to this, which we'll look at. I can sing this, and you can chant Hare Krishna in response. Ekadina nachi prabhu Srivas Anga chila luka yasya gasya sudhi Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Ek din nache. One day, ek dina nachi prabhu Srivas Anga. Mahaprabhu was dancing in the house of Srivas Thakur. Bhari Chila, Srivas Thakur's mother-in-law was hiding in the house because she wanted to see the dancing of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. No one knew that she was there. She was hiding behind a big basket of grains in the corner of the room. Why was she hiding? She didn't have sufficient good fortune to be able to enter that to the dancing of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu began dancing, and he said, Nachite, nachite, Prabhu, bole gana gana, lila-smarana, aji nahi ki karana. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Nachite, nachite, Prabhu, bole gana. He's dancing. But he said over and over again, lila-smarana, aji nahi ki karana. I don't feel any ulas. I don't feel any happiness today. Is there someone hiding here? And when he spoke like that, then Srivas Thakur personally started looking, are there any KGB, CIA agents or something here, people who don't belong? And again, they started the kirtan. And Mahaprabhu stopped and said, I'm not feeling any happiness. It's a very significant pastime. I'm not feeling any happiness. Maybe Krishna's not giving me any mercy today. And then Srivas Thakur searched again. And this time he found that old, in Russia they call them babushka, old ladies. He found that old lady. And Srivas Thakur, Vrindavan Thakur explains, he said, don't be angry with him, the way he treated her. Because he was intoxicated with Krishna prema. He wasn't in control of himself. And Srivas Thakur, he told the devotees, you grab her by the hair and drag her out. It's a little rough. It's not what we think of with the Hare Krishna movement. How do we understand this principle? And there's another pastime also, in the 23rd chapter of the Madhya Lila, that speaks again about Mahaprabhu's Kirtan and how they weren't allowing anyone inside. Why were they not allowing anyone inside? And when Prabhupada says only bona fide chanters were allowed in, our Guru Maharaj raises the question, what does it mean to be a bona fide chanter? Am I a bona fide chanter? It's a good question. I'd like to be a bona fide chanter. So why was this policy being enacted? And we hear in Chaitanya Bhagavat, the local people were getting a little annoyed because the kirtan sounded so beautiful. And once in a while they'd hear a little something about how amazing the dancing of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was. So people wanted to go and see. But Praveshni Niषेध, entrance forbidden. They weren't allowing them inside. So they were a little annoyed. But eight brahmacharis say Navadvipavasi. There was one Navadvipavasi. There's a brahmachari. Tapasvi Paramasadhu Vasayanadoshi. He didn't have any faults. He was a sadhu. He was very, very simple. He was a tapasvi. He was very austere. And moreover, Sarva Kala Payapana. All the time, all that he would drink was milk. He was a milk drinker, like a little baby. Ananahi Kai. It's interesting in the Bengali language, they use one word, it's the same word for drinking, for eating, for smoking. It's Kai. Ananahi Kai. He wouldn't eat any grains. Prabhu Kirtan 𝗙𝗂𝗿. And he wanted to see the Kirtan of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so every day he was requesting Srivas Thakur, you should let me come and see. If you give me some mercy, then I can go and see the dancing of my Pandit, and my life will be perfected. And I'll always be very grateful to you. And Srivas Thakur was thinking to himself, he's a brahmachari. I'm just a poacher, grihastha, rotten grihastha. He's a nice brahmachari. He only drinks milk. He's really strict, he's very pure. Definitely he must have some qualification to enter into the kirtan. And so he told him, he said, your body has no sin in it, so definitely you must be qualified to see the kirtan. But Mahaprabhu has told us not to allow any outside people, so you have to hide. And so he hid behind a curtain or something. And then that day, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to dance. And the devotees were singing, Krishna Rama Mukunda Murari Vandana Shri Mili Kai Hai Mahaprabhu Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna Rama Mukunda Murari Vanamali. They're all chanting different names of Krishna, and they were dancing like anything. Nityananda Gadadhara Hare Abhidai Anande Gita Simachari Digidai Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Nityananda Gadadhara Hare Abhidai. They were embracing each other, Nityananda Prabhu and Advaita and Gadadhara Pandit, spinning around. And Advaita Acharya, this old man, was jumping up and down. Anande Advaita Singha, Chari Digidai, going here and there, great ecstasy. When you see an old person dancing kirtan, it's very good. You feel some happiness in your heart. And he was just chanting and chanting. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was dancing in such an amazing way. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's Sarvagya, he knew that that milk-drinking brahmachari was there. And he kept stopping the kirtan. Rahiga, Rahi Bole, Prabhu Vishwambar. Aji, Kena Prema Yoga, Napana Nibhar. He said, why am I not getting any happiness today? I don't understand. I think there must be some other person here. It's a very important principle. This is the beginning of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement, and the end of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement. Sometimes we think that to be a preacher, to be a devotee of Mahaprabhu means you just like destroy yourself. You just go out constantly and just read books and preach and you don't do anything else. But this Prabhupada sometimes said that this movement runs on two tracks. One is our preaching and the other is our personal bhajan. And we need that. We need that individually and we need that collectively as community. As we were mentioning, this verse, Parasparana Katha. It's another important verse in the Sattva Tantra. Hari lila-smarana pareshu satatam tvaya karya pritistava harya yata bhakti manashati. Everybody speaks about priti, about love. But how do we develop love for the devotees? And this verse says, yata bhakti manashati. You want to protect your bhakti. You don't want to fall down. And what should you do? Hari lila sutokshara. You should always hear Krishna Katha with devotees. We should come together. And what is the necessity of hearing Krishna Katha? We can just do kirtan. It says Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama. It doesn't say kirtan or Shravan, Katha Shravan, Katha Shravan, Katha Shravan Eva Kevalam. It says Hare Nama. In that regard, then another question arises. If the holy name is everything, then why did Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu so strongly promote Srimad Bhagavatam in all of our acharyas? In this regard, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has commented that just as we don't separate Krishna from Srimati Radharani, we don't separate Krishna Kirtan from the Swarup Shakti of Krishna Kirtan, which is Krishna Katha. That Kirtan is Krishna, and the Krishna Katha is Radharani. And therefore, Prabhupada, he, as Shuddha Kirti Prabhu was telling us recently, he said, I went to the first Kirtan Mela, and it was, it's probably very, very simple, just a few words. In Kirtan, Prabhupada always introduced a sandwich. Everybody likes sandwiches. He would do Kirtan, then Katha, and then Kirtan. Because if you just only do Kirtan, then it may become a musical performance. Oh, it's very good player. Harmonium player also. Good. They may say like that. And some people may come to such a thing to worship the rock stars. Like people with piercing and funny tattoos and different things all over. They're very extraordinary persons. And we go for like a rock concert. I mean, that's a cool thing to do. It's nice. It's Krishna Kirtan. But what is everybody thinking? Some people are coming, they're thinking, when is Prasad? When are they going to have good Prasad? Some young ladies are going because I heard there's some single hot boys here. And they find a good husband. And some boys are coming for the girls in a similar way. And maybe some people are coming, I heard if you chant Hare Krishna, you'll see the white light. Or you'll get liberation. You'll get, who knows what everybody's thinking? And it's a difficult thing because in music, we want to harmonize. If you're going to play a guitar with a harmonium, then you have to tune the guitar to the same kind of key that the harmonium's in, so that you can harmonize. When we sing together, we want to make some harmony in the voices. Now the word harmony, harmonize in English, has two meanings. One is a musical term, but the second speaks more about the principle of community. That we want to bring our hearts into harmony. And this is the principle of art. This is the principle of all the different arts in Vedic culture. If you wanted to try to define what is art, I was thinking about that for a long time. My definition of art is that art is a feeling or a conception, an idea that the artist is trying to share with other persons through a particular medium. Whether it may be oil painting, watercolors, or music, or dance, or drama, or poetry, or cooking, or speaking Hare Krishna, or even doing management. And something. It may be an art. The person wants to express a feeling they have, an understanding they have, through a particular medium. And in that conception of art, there's three elements. You have the painting, or the music, or the dance, or the poem, or whatever. You have the art. You have the artist. But even if you have a Michelangelo painting and the most brilliant artist in the history of the world, it's still not art. Because art means communication. You need a third element, which is the relisher, the person who's appreciating it. So for that to happen properly, people need to be on the same page. And not everybody's going to be on the same page. I've been living in Orissa since 1993. And there's a certain culture there. If you go to Gujarat, if you go to Manipur, if you go to South India, the culture's different. And people tend to stay with the same people. Sujataya Snigdha Sadhu Sangha Siddhovare, Rupa Goswami says in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Sujataya. We generally associate with people that we like. If you speak Tamil, you like to associate with Tamil speakers. If you're from North India and you speak Gujarati or you speak Hindi, you like to speak with those kind of persons. It's natural because we have a similar conception. And our journey of bhakti is both an individual journey and a collective journey because bhakti stu bhagavat bhakta sangena parijayate. Brihanaradiya Purana declares that you can't get bhakti on your own. Ye me bhakti janaparta na me bhakti sate janam bhakti ancha ye bhakti te me bhakti tamamataha. Krishna tells Arjuna, the Adi Purana, that those people say they're my devotees. Krishna says, I don't know who they are. They're not my devotee. But the devotee of my devotee is my real devotee. So this is both an individual and a collective movement. And the movement means that we're not just sitting still, but we're moving, we're dancing, we're going places, and we're moving on the inside, we're moving in our mind, we're moving in our heart. This is a Hare Krishna movement, and we should be moving individually and collectively. So there needs to be a common conception. And that's a private thing. I heard some years ago that Jamuna, one of my heroes, Prabhupada's disciple, when the last time she went to Mayapur, she's such a famous Kirtaniya, Prabhupada liked her Kirtan so much. Devotees asked her to do Kirtan regularly, and they were doing Kirtan every night in a home of one of her friends there in Mayapur. And there was about, 8 or 10 devotees coming to the Kirtan. And Jamuna asked all of them, you please come every day, because we want to create a Sangha. And one day, there was a knock on the door, just before they began. Someone opened the door, and there's this Mataji that everybody knew, local devotees, friends of everybody there, initiated the way with tilak and kunti mala and a big smile on her face. Can I take part in the Kirtan? And Jamuna, without even looking around the room, she said, I'm sorry, but there's not enough room. It made all the devotees in the room very uncomfortable. Because they looked around, and it'd be like us saying that here. Somebody came, can I join the program? He said, sorry, there's not enough room. And you look around, and half the seats are empty, there's so much space here. And the devotees were confused. And one of them said, well, she could fit over here. And Jamuna rather reluctantly said, okay. Later, one of the devotees went to Jamuna and said, I don't understand. you're the most kind-hearted person I've ever met. Why did you tell her there was no room when there was room? And Jamuna told her a very important thing. She said, I could see written all over her face the attitude of entitlement. These are my friends. I live here in Mayapur. I'm an initiated devotee. I can attend this. And Jamuna told her, we want to move together as an intimate group. If we want to go very deep in our bhakti, that's required. We have, if you're living in the temple, how many of you live in a temple here? Anybody? I like that, actually. It's more human. If you're living in the temple, you have to go to the Bhagavatam class every day. And sometimes it's, wow, it's really good. And other times it's like, oh my God. You know, I heard one Bhagavatam class in Vrindavan during Kartik, senior sannyasi. And the deepest thing that he said in the class was that Krishna's blue, like Spider-Man and Superman. Little disappointing. But there's some people who like that. And a lot of people who like Spider-Man and Superman. Right? So we want to create a sangha, but it needs to be a like-minded sangha. And this is what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching us by having his closed doors at Srivas Anga. Now you may say, well, when did he get the idea to spread the holy name and to do Nava Sankirtan, Kirtan everywhere? It wasn't that the idea wasn't there in him. He was thinking that. But we have to begin with this. This is what Srila Prabhupada did also. He started in Compton Park. It's kind of like fishing. You catch a few fish, you bring them in closer, and then in 26th Avenue, Prabhupada gave the sandwich. Kirtan, Kirtan, Kirtan. The first Kirtan, to use kind of a New Age expression, it opens your chakras, Prabhu. First Kirtan, it kind of cleans up the cobwebs of your mind and things, and gets you in the spirit of understanding. And then you have Katha. The first Kirtan kind of cleanses the heart, but then you have to put something in the heart. So you put Katha in the heart. And Srila Prabhupada was doing it. Those early Kathas, by the way, if you listen to Prabhupada's early classes in 26th Avenue, wow, he speaks a lot about Vrindavan, some Vrindavan lila, and some very, very deep things. I don't know why he kind of changed. It seemed like he changed his spirit, and later started speaking more of you're not your body and things like that. Perhaps he got to know the devotees a little better, or perhaps this was his personal ecstasy in the beginning. He wanted to share both. I don't know. But in any case, those early classes are very extraordinary. So Prabhupada created a sangha by having that kind of kirtan. And then again you do kirtan. But the final kirtan, there's something there. That final kirtan is based on the kirtan that you heard. And we all harmonize. Because we're all on the same page. Because it's paraspara on Katanam. There's paraspara means back and forth, some discussion. Well, you're saying we should chant Hare Krishna, but I don't know, isn't Namo Shivaya better? And they may ask an honest question. And then the devotees discuss and go back and forth. And, oh, Hare Krishna Maha-mantra is in the Brihanarya Puranas, it's like this. Okay, we should chant the Hare Krishna mantra. So in that way, we come together on the same page. We harmonize together. So this is required. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was feeling there's no happiness. Because the happiness comes, the ruchi, the taste, really comes in like-minded association. There's also a taste when we go out on the street and we chant, and some new people start chanting with us. That's ecstatic. Why is that? Prabhupada used to quote Bhaktivinoda Thakur's song, Odi Vaishnava Thakur, Ekaki Amar Nahi Payabhala, Harinama Sankirtan. Once in one lecture that he gave in London to a group of non-devotees, new people, he quoted this, and he said, we're here, he said, I could chant on my own, but there's no strength. I can't do kirtan on my own. So I'm asking you to come and chant with us. And this is what we're doing on the street. We're fishing. we're trying to capture, with our net, trying to capture some other souls because we all want to do kirtan together. And what is the meaning of that kirtan? Why are we out there with that net? What is that net? Those are some of the things we want to speak more about. So Mahaprabhu said, I don't have any happiness. What's going on? And Srivas Thakur and said, well, he only drinks milk. He's a brahmachari. He's really a good guy. Believe me. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said, what, you think that just by drinking milk, someone can sing my dancing? If that was a fact, then every new baby would be a Paramahamsa. Because that's all they're doing, they're just milk drinkers. And they're brahmacharis also. They don't even know what a girl or a boy is at that age. So Mahaprabhu chastised him. And he said, no. He said, it's not just by drinking milk that someone can have my association. Now, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually gave mercy to that personality. But he chastised him to teach us a point that we need to have community. We need to have not just community, and it's not just that when I joined ISKCON, I got Kaivalya Mukti, and now I am ISKCON. No, it doesn't work like that. You're also Gujarati. You still have parents, you have aunties and uncles, you still have friends, you have other different persons. You are you, and that individuality is what makes it the beauty of this movement, that we have so many different individuals. But it's natural that you may want to associate with devotees who eat Gujarati style things. And maybe Italian is okay, kids like it, but I like my Gujarati thali. Someone will say that. Or South Indian, or Odia, or Chinese, where you go to China, everything is tofu and soy sauce, and that's their thing there. And they like that. And in Europe, in so many places, it's bread, isn't it? And soup. Everybody has to have bread and soup. We don't relate to chapatis or rice. So we need to make our community, and we need to do that within ISKCON. And that's why I'm very happy to come and see all of you. You should make a very beautiful, strong community. And it's okay, not everybody, it's not that you have open doors for everybody. That open door policy is very good for temples. Prabhupada said we've had some good success with that. But there's also been some problems. If we try to say that the temple and ISKCON is our community, and certainly it was in the beginning, and certainly we want that, and when we come to the temple, we want to be friends with the devotees, we want to know everybody there, we want to have a community. There should be a community in that temple, but we've had problems with that policy, because when people come, and then we want to have someone take care of our children, and we don't vet them, we don't check them out properly, because it's an open door policy, prabhu. And this is the Hare Krishna movement, we just allow anybody and everybody to come, and that's very good, we should, but taking care of our children, that's another thing. Coming close to us as a community, that's another thing. And we need to keep our arms closed. We need to close the doors to certain people and say, probation shade. And this was Jamuna's point, in Mayapur, that we want to create a very special, intimate sangha. She could be friends with everybody, but she wanted that very special, intimate sangha. So that's a little something about Srivas Anga. There's many different points. Actually, I think we could do this kind of discussion for a few weeks. It's a big topic. And then what I'm really hoping from all of you is that you don't just sit there passively. Hopefully some of you will stay awake, at least a few of you. You don't just sit there passively, but you have some thoughts. And you ask questions of things. And then we'll feel that there's some success. We're not just an entertainer with our bad jokes. We're not just a musician or something, but we're here to help people to think about things and to consider. And it's not that the way that I think is the best way, but we should discuss it as a group. So this question about first initiation is a very interesting subject. I'm the director of a research institute in Japan called Gauranga Research research associations affiliated with the Bhaktivedanta Research Center in Kolkata. And our work is to collect old rare manuscripts, preserve them, translate them, publish them, and also to do research on different subjects, historical things and that. And to connect with different scholars, different mahants, different sadhus and things for the purpose of helping our Sampradaya. So one thing that I've heard many times from different Vaishnavas, some criticism of our Islam society. And that makes me unhappy. I don't like to hear criticism of anyone, even if they're a Muslim or a Jew or whatever. There's no reason to criticize. We have our personal taste, but I don't have to like everybody else's thing. But there's no reason to criticize. But some say that this first initiation in Islam, it has no meaning. It's just there to encourage people. And when we hear that, it hurts our heart. Because whether that's true or not is another point, but I think you're speaking this about Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada established this thing, and Prabhupada gave only first initiation to many devotees, and we don't consider them to be lesser or something. So how do we understand this? And not only that question's there, but if you look a little more closely at the ritual itself, the first initiation, we've never heard of an initiation ceremony where someone's chanting the mantra before they get initiated. Isn't it? You've never heard of that. And Prabhupada's standard was for at least 1 year, chanting 16 rounds. And then after initiation, you're also chanting 16 rounds, the same mantra. What's the difference? Maybe they're right. Maybe it's just something to encourage people. The second point is I've been to many initiation ceremonies. Janaki Prabhu was with me in England when Guru Maharaj gave initiation. I was the Purport during the yajna. And I've never seen anyone give first initiation and speak the mantra in the ear of the disciple. They were already chanting it anyway. So what does it mean? We should think very deeply about this. There's an important verse from the Padma Purana, which is quoted often by our acharyas. It's probably one of the Prabhupada's favorite verses in terms of how many times he quoted it. It's a very deep verse, which I find a lot of devotees know it, but they haven't really thought about it very deeply. That verse is, Ata Shri Krishna Namadi Nabhavedgraya Indriyais Sevanmukhi Jivado Swayameva Sparatida. If you analyze the message of the verse, it seems contradictory. What's said in the first line seems completely opposite from the second line. Let me explain. First line describes Ata Shri Krishna Nama Adi. Adi means etc. So beginning, Ata Shri Krishna, with Krishna's name. Ata Shri Krishna Nama Adi. And Prabhupada translates it sometimes as Krishna's form, Krishna's pastimes, anything connected with Krishna. Ata Shri Krishna Nabhaved Grayam Indriya. With your Indriya Vyapara, with your 5 knowledge-acquiring senses, you can't perceive the holy name or Krishna. And then what does the next line say? Sevanmukhi Jiva Do. Jiva means the tongue, which is one of the knowledge-acquiring senses. Sevanmukhi Jiva Do Swayam Eva Sparatyada. But when you chant with the tongue, then it manifests. But I'm confused because the first line said, Nama Adi, Nabhavid Grayam Indriya, that you can't perceive the holy name with your senses. And then the next line says, Jivado, Swayam Eva Sparatyada, but if you chant with the tongue. But hello, the tongue is one of the 5 knowledge-acquiring senses. But the significant word in the verse is Sevanmukhi. When you begin to chant as a service, why is it that devotees chant the Hare Krishna mantra? How can devotees chant the Hare Krishna mantra before initiation? Rupa Goswami gives us an answer in his Lagu Bhagavatamrita and his Mangalacharana. He said that Sri Chaitanya Mukund Kirna Hare Krishna Divanakaha Madhyayanta Jagat Premi Vijayanta Kadavaya. Mahaprabhu gave the Maha-mantra to everyone. And so he gave it to everyone so we can chant it. All right, but then what is the meaning of first initiation? Well, let's analyze that ceremony that Srila Prabhupada gave us. What do? The devotee promises to follow 4 regulated principles, chant 16 rounds, and then they put this neck beads around him. Prabhupada gives them a name, and Prabhupada would give a lecture. What would he lecture about? The 10 offenses to the holy name. In effect, what's going on in that ceremony is that Prabhupada, our gurus, are saying, okay, I'm going to accept you as my disciple, my follower. But you were chanting before, and you're chanting now, but now your chanting is going to be a service. This is a kirtan of our Sampradaya. All of our acharyas are doing this kirtan as a service. Who is that service for? Why is that service there? How does that work? We want to discuss in the next few days. So, in effect, Prabhupada and acharyas are saying that, okay, I'm going to accept you as my disciple. And by the way, I've read in Prema of Nityananda Das. Nityananda Das was, Hare Krishna, hey, please come. We saved a seat for you. Nityananda Das was a disciple of Janama Mahaprabhu, the wife of Lord Nityananda. And she told him to write this book, Prema Vilas, about the pastime of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Srivas Anga. And in that book, he mentions there that Madhavananda stopped on one occasion. He accepted his disciples, a couple of really rough persons. And it said there that before he told them, now you go to the Gauranga and take bath and come back and put on fresh clothes. And when they came back, he gave them the holy name. He gave them Harinama initiation. And then later, after some time when they were more purified, he gave them Gayatri Mantra. For those who just came in, Hare Krishna, nice to see some friends. We're speaking about the mystery of first initiation. What does it mean? Huh? How is it that you're chanting a mantra before you get initiated? We've never heard of that. But in our movement, we have first initiation, and people are chanting the Hare Krishna mantra before they join. Second question, how is it that they're getting initiated, but we've never seen anybody chant the Hare Krishna mantra in their ear? They're already doing it. So to answer that, we cited this verse from Rupa Goswami's Lord Bhagavatam, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Hare Krishna 𝗖𝗂𝗿 Mahaprabhu gave the Hare Krishna mantra to everyone. So everyone can chant it. We all have a right to chant the Maha-mantra. But then what is the meaning of the ceremony of accepting Guru? And that's the point we were making when you came in, that Guru is accepting us and telling us to do service. Because otherwise, Sri Krishna nama-kirtana, we can't chant the mantra on our own with our own strength. But seva-mukhi, when you chant, the first line says, with your senses you can't do it. But the second line says with your tongue, which is one of the senses, you do it. But seva-mukhi, doing it as service. Jiva Goswami, in his Kama Sundara commentary on the 6th canto of Bhagavatam, explains that there's 2 types of chanting. He calls this 𝗂𝗿 common chanting. It's in the dictionary. Everybody can do it. And there's many people who came to this movement because in the 1960s in America there was a famous movie called Hair. And it's some hippie thing, and people were chanting Hare Krishna. And a lot of people saw it, well, that's really cool. Well, they heard George Harrison, My Sweet Lord, singing the Hare Krishna mantra, and they started chanting it because of that. But what's the difference? The first question I asked my Guru Maharaj when I met him, I met him the second time, was the first big question I asked Guru Maharaj. It was in Canada in Vancouver in 1993. I asked him, Maharaj, I said, what's the difference between chanting with initiation and chanting without initiation? He liked the question. He said, chanting is so powerful. You can get dharma, artha, kama, and even moksha. But those things are kaikava chatustoy, 4 types of cheating in comparison to panchama purushartha, the 5th and highest goal, which is Krishna prema. And that's what we want from Guru. So Jiva Goswami says there's two types of chanting, Kevalanam and Sneha Samyuktanam. We want Sneha Samyuktanam. And to help that penetrate, we have the sandwich, Kirtan, Katha, Kirtan. We need to also have Katha. Srila Prabhupada was very strict about that. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was very strict about that. Otherwise it can become music and some kind of entertainment. I like the really good musicians. They're the best. But we want something to fill our heart. So the Sneha Samyuktanam means that I'm chanting a service to someone. And there's a contract there. And he tells us, okay, you're going to be my disciple, and you're going to chant as a service to me. This is the Kirtan of our Sampradaya. We'll explain that term more over the next few days. You're going to do this Kirtan for me as a service, but to be my representative and to get my blessings, there's 10 offenses you should try to avoid. Prabhupada used to say, try to avoid these 10 offenses. Do your best. And there's 4 regulated principles. And you have to promise you're going to chant 16 rounds. In the beginning of this Mukta Charit, Srila Radharani Swami has given us a very famous verse, nama-kirtana, nama-kirtana. He describes the different gifts that he's gotten from Gurudev. And he says, nama-kirtana. What is the necessity of the suffix shrestha, of saying nama-kirtana? It's nam is nam, right? Advaya tattva. It's one. It's not many, but it's one. But it's many in the sense, what is the conception? And sometimes some people, they chant the Hare Krishna mantra, and they're thinking that Ram means, as our acharyas say, Ram means Radhika Ram. It means Krishna. But some people are thinking that Hare means Radha, and Ram means Ramachandra. And Radharani and Ramachandra. Or some are thinking that Ram means Balaram, and Radharani and Balaram. Or some are thinking that Ram means Parshuram. Radharani and Parshuram. And Prabhupada, in one conversation, said, that's okay. There's different conceptions. We like to follow what Raghunath Swami is given, Bhaktivinoda was given, what Gopal Guru Goswami is given, in their commentaries on the Hare Krishna mantra, where they describe that Ram means Radhika Ram. It means Krishna with Radharani. But Prabhupada said, no problem. But we want a conception. Conception is so important. This is Sneha Samyuktana. And this is the Kirtan of our Sampradaya. It's not just a mechanical religious performance. And in the Catholic Church, they chant Hail Mary. Right? They have that prayer. And the Hare Krishna movement, you guys have the Hare Krishna mantra. And the Buddhists, they have this mantra, what is it? Om Mani Padme Hum. They've got their mantra, and everybody has their own different mantras, and we go to church or the mosque or the temple or whatever, and we chant our particular thing. This is not a movement like that. Srila Prabhupada in 1967 wrote a letter to the General Governor of Canada, Mr. Ronald Michener. And he explained in that letter, it's a letter I like to cite often, what is the Hare Krishna movement? The first thing he said, it's a non-lucrative movement. We're not here to make money. We're a non-lucrative movement. And he said we're a non-sectarian society. And in our Krishna consciousness movement, we have members who come from Hindu, Sikh, Muslim, Christian backgrounds. And Prabhupada said, and they can keep their respective religion and still be a member of this movement. So our purpose of this movement is not to make a religion. Now naturally it will become a religion. It is a religion in many places for many people, especially if you're born in India or come from an Indian family. It's a tendency, honestly. But there's a difference. That's why Srila Prabhupada didn't like to call the Krishna consciousness movement Hindu. Although sometimes he also used that phrase. Sometimes he said we're Hindu. And if it looks like a duck and it quacks and lays eggs, well, right? What is a Hindu? A Hindu is someone who's a vegetarian who worships, reads the Bhagavad Gita, Vedic literatures, and they offer their food to God, and we do all those things. So we're Hindus in that sense. But why Srila Prabhupada didn't like that phrase because this Krishna conscious movement is something more. And in this movement, you can be a Muslim, you can be a Christian, you can be a Sikh, a Jain, whatever, and still be a member of this movement. The first time we went to Uzbekistan, we were giving classes there in Tashkent. It's the only legal temple in the whole country. No one's allowed to chant Hare Krishna legally outside of that temple. If you do a program in your home, even if you read Srila Prabhupada's books in your home, and then someone finds out, they'll call the police may raid your home, confiscate the books, and arrest the devotees for chanting Hare Krishna. But in that temple, it's legal. And you can wear a dhoti and a sari and tilak, and it's okay there. So in the classes, there was one lady coming every day who was wearing a black burqa. One of those kind of burqas that you could only see her eyes like this. And honestly, I've never had someone come in our guitars wearing a burqa before. and she was coming every day. So finally I asked one of the devotees, who's the lady there? And they said, well, it's such and such. She chants 16 rounds a day. And she does namaz 5 times a day to offer her prayers to Mecca and that. And she wears a burqa because otherwise her family will kill her. She has to. She's a Muslim. But she's a Muslim, Hare Krishna. And I have a lot of stories like this of Christians and Orthodox Christians who come to Krishna consciousness who kept their religion but also began to chant. So it's not just an external thing. In his commentary on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes that Indriya Vyapara, or Indriya Prerana, means that the senses engage with the sense objects. That's religion. That's Kevalanam, as Jiva Goswami said. That's a common name. And it's pious. If you do that, you're getting what Bhaktivinoda technically calls Bhakti Unmukhi Sukriti. You're getting some very good Sukriti. It's Bhakti Unmukhi Sukriti. It's very good. The best fruit of that will be you may get Sadhu Sangha. And Sadhu Sangha, Krishna Nam Ekmatra Chai. Jagadananda Pandit describes in Prema Vivart, that's all that I want. These two things, Sadhu Sangha, Krishna Nam. Because these two things go together. You can't have Sadhu Sangha without Krishna Nam. Because chanting, if you're with the devotees, I may say Anandajit Prabhu is a wonderful devotee. He's so good. And to have Sadhu Sangha, I'm going to go to a Spider-Man movie with him. And it's cool because we're wearing tilak and it's Sadhu Sangha. It doesn't work like that. Maybe we're in a Sringati movie, right? That's right. And that's Sadhu Sangha. So it depends on the conception, it depends on how we're behaving. So there's a connection between Nam and Guru. Krishna says in the Adi Purana, when mentioned Yeme Bhakta Janaparta, Name Bhaktas Tate Janaham, Bhaktanam Chaye Bhaktas, Te Me Bhakta Tamo Mataham. That person who says he's my devotee is not my devotee. That person who's chanting Hare Krishna, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, worshipping the deity is not my devotee. Unless he's connected with my devotee. Krishna says the devotee of my devotee is my real devotee. No, it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with chanting Hare Krishna before. It doesn't mean we should run around and tell people don't chant. Unless you're initiated. Don't offer your food, or don't read the Bhagavatam, and this and that. But there's a difference. There's a difference between chanting before and chanting after. And we want to speak about the kirtan of our Sampradaya. Not just a general kirtan that people may get. Even at a kirtan mela, we have a lot of people come, and it's some good music, and it's rocking, and it's great. It's a really good thing to do. But what is the special quality? In Gopal Sampur, Jiva Goswami gives a beautiful verse that my grandma used to quote. It's spoken by Narad Muni to Krishna. And Narad Muni explains that there's 7 people who are so bad, they're just like a knife in my heart, or a spear in my heart. Nipona Hari Sevita Vyayatitina Haryarpakam Kavirna Hari Varnakashita Guruna Haryasritaha Gurina Hari Tapada Sadasadirna Krishnasrayaha Sampradaya Ramanuga Swarupi Sapta Salyani Me Sapta Salyani Me. Salyani means a spear. Sapta seven. 7 spears in my heart. The first, Nipuna Hari Sevita. He's a king, Nirpa, but he doesn't serve the Lord. The second is Vyaya Kriti Naharyapaka. Someone who has so much money, but he won't give anything to Krishna. He won't give anything to the devotees. The third, Kabir Nahari Varnaka. He's a kavi, he's a poet, but he only writes poems about pretty girls, or about the autumn weather, or this and that. He doesn't write anything about Krishna. The fourth, Shrita Guru Naharashrita. Someone who's Guru Ashrita, who's taking shelter of Gurudev, but doesn't worship Krishna. And this is the point of the verse. Just the fifth is someone who's a Guni, but Nahari Tapara. He has good qualities, but he's not enthusiastic to serve the Lord. Sadhasudhirna Krishnashraya. The sixth is someone who has good intelligence, but not Krishnashraya. He's not taking shelter of Krishna. And the seventh is son of Raja Ramanuga Swaridismi. Someone who has all these things, good intelligence, and maybe he's taking shelter of Krishna, but he doesn't appreciate the gopis. There's some Vaishnavas, like there's one group I know of in Vrindavan. They worship Krishna, but they don't worship the gopis. They don't speak about the gopis. They don't speak about the 6 Goswamis. Although sometimes they quote the books, but they don't take shelter of the 6 Goswamis. They don't take shelter of the gopis. So Shrita Guru na Haryashrita. The fourth person is someone who's making a show, basically. He's come to Guru, give me initiation, Maharaj. I'm sick and tired of being called Bhakta Mark or Bhaktin, this or that. I want a spiritual name so people give me respect. They take initiation, but they're not taking shelter of Krishna. And that person is like a spirit in the heart. So we should know that there's a special relationship between the holy name and the Guru. Rupa Goswami, in his Vidyadali, he says that Patagara Sri Padavanda Bhakti. That just as we get the holy name from Guru, right, at the same time that we chant the holy name, that holy name gives us bhakti to Guru. The two are in cause and effect. Srivas Anga, Krishna Nam, 𝗖𝗎 Therefore, I only want these two things. I need both things. If you want to Srivas Anga, that means you have to chant Hare Krishna, not just go to some movie with the numbers of the devotion movie. That's not Srivas Anga. And on the other hand, if you think, these guys are all losers, I'm just going to chant Hare Krishna home by myself. I don't need these guys. If you try to chant Hare Krishna without any devotees, that's also not sufficient. Because when you chant in association with devotees, that's sneha samyuktana, where you're coming closer to it, if those devotees are deeper devotees. From that association, you get deeper kirtan. From the deeper kirtan, you get deeper association. From the deeper association, you get even deeper nama-kirtana. From the even deeper nama-kirtana, you get the two go together, and you can't separate them any more than you can separate Krishna from his devotees. Krishna's appeared with the holy name, Shri Krishna nama-kirtana. Nama-kirtana is Krishna, Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha, Abhinata-nama-namino. That Krishna's non-different from his name. You can't separate Krishna from his devotees. You can't separate the devotees from the holy name. And Gurudev, he gives us this japamala. And this japamala, maybe we'll speak some about this. There's a number of things I'd love to share with you. This japamala is just like the umbilical cord. I don't know what's the word for that in Dutch. The cord that goes from the baby to the baby. Say it real loud. that. So we also have a
Navel string.
Huh?
Navel string.
Navel string. Navel string. We also have a navel string, which connects us to Gurudev. And he feeds us, and this is a navel string, which connects me to my Gurudev. And therefore Prabhupada is saying that the most essential instruction of the spiritual master is that we should chant a certain number of rounds every day. This is our connection with our Gurudev. In the 𝗙𝗏, Lord Brahma says, Yom mantra saguru sakshat, yogaru sahari swayam. That you should know that your Gurudev is not different from Krishna, and your Gurudev is not different from the mantra that you've gotten. We don't distinguish between the two. In the history of the Gaudiya Math, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta purchased this beautiful temple in Bhaktazar. Highly recommended that you go there. If you go upstairs, you can see the room where Srila Bhaktisiddhanta left this world. And they have a beautiful museum now of different artifacts and things of Mahaprabhu and different great devotees. So once at the temple there, he saw the devotees were sitting down for prasadam. And at the front of the queue, front of the line, they were all seated, but the front of the row to get prasadam were all the Dikshit devotees, the really high-class devotees, who had a paita, Brahman thread. And they would get prasadam first, and then the Harinam devotees would get second, because the Brahmins are very important. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, when he saw that, he said that these devotees who have this Brahman initiation, they're actually inferior to the other devotees who only have first initiation. Because they're Krishnasraya. And those who are Dikshit and have second initiation, they don't believe that Nam-nami Abhina, that the holy name is not different from the Lord. And he quoted some verses from Chaitanya Bhagavat, which maybe I'll sing. You can chant Hare Krishna in response. Prabhu bole kahirana e maha-mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Bhagavate Sarva Sri Gauri Vrishabha, Sarvakshana Mula Ide Diri Nahi Ara. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Mahaprabhu said, you chant Kailana A Maha-mantra. You chant this Hare Krishna Maha-mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. You chant japa of this. Koriya Nirbandha, don't ever stop. Iha hoiti sarva siddhi hoiti sabha. This will give you all perfection. Sarvakshana bola iti vidi nahi ar. For this vidi nahi ar. There's no rules and regulations for this chanting of Hare Krishna. Eka Krishna name kori sarva Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Krishna, you just chant one Krishna name, Sarva Papakshoy. All your pap, all your sin will go away. Navavida Bhakti Purna Nama Hoite Hoy. All the different processes of Navavidi Bhakti you can accomplish by chanting. Why sometimes devotees in different lines, they think, well, this chanting is for neophytes. But when you become a higher Vaishnava, then you do Smarana. But Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasi, you can't separate those. It begins with Shravan, there's a connection, Shravan, Kirtan, Smarana. And here Mahaprabhu is saying, all those processes of Navavidi Bhakti are all contained within this chanting. If we do this chanting, Smarana comes automatically. We'll speak more about that at think later we go along. And then he quoted this verse. Diksha Purush Chaja Vidi Bhiksha Nakoi Jiva Spasha Achandala Shavare Udare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Diksha Purush Chaja Vidi Apeksha Nakoi. Apeksha means it's not required, it's not dependent on. The chanting Hare Krishna is not dependent upon Diksha. It's not dependent on Purushcharya Vidhi, that you have to chant the mantra 10,000 times to get siddhi in it, to purify the mantra. You have to put some syllables in it, you have to put it in water and do some mudras and things over it. It's not required. The Purushcharya Vidhi is not required. Apeksha, it doesn't wait for that. Apeksha is also a word in Audio language. You tell a rickshawala, apeksha, you don't need to wait. So it doesn't wait, the holy name doesn't wait. Jiva sparshe, if it just touches the tongue, achandala sabare udari, it delivers all the chandalas from everyone. So this is our principle of chanting Hare Krishna. This is the meaning, the secret of first initiation. And a few other points that I'm going to stop here, because I heard that Hiranyakashipu is hanging out here in the room, and it's really somebody you don't want to mess with. He's a very angry person. So I don't want Hiranyakashipu or Lord Srimati to be angry. Maybe we have a couple minutes. Is that okay? We could, and tomorrow, when we go on with this song, we have a few songs we want to share with you. And a lot of thoughts, this is just the beginning, this is a foundation, but try to understand what is the kirtan of our Sampradaya. What does it mean? Why do we chant Hare Krishna? Why not chant Nityananda, 𝗤𝗖𝗄𝗍 𝗏 There's a saying in Bengali. You chant the name of Nitai and you get all good fortune. But then why do we have this Hare Krishna mantra? Why don't we just chant Radhe, Radhe, Radhe? Radharani's name is so wonderful. What is the mystery of this Maha-mantra? And what is the kirtan of our Sampradaya? What is the kirtan of Srimati Radharani? We'll speak some more about some of these things. And tomorrow I think we'll sing a song from Chaitanya Mangal about the nama-yajna. Any questions, reflections, anything? Did anybody manage to stay awake? That's the thing. It makes me happy when somebody had something. Yes, prabhu.
When you read Gauranga literature,
Just wait a second, I'm going to give you the microphone.
Thank you for your nice class. It was very nice to hear. I have some questions. When you read these Gaudiya literatures, they're quoting many references which are practically unavailable, like Adi Puran and other things. You know, they are in the Goswami literature. When you speak to some Sampradayas, they ask you, where is your Raga Nuga described in the scriptures? How do you reply to that?
Well, first of all, this is a special feature that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu brought. And going back is kind of an academic kind of question about the Adi Purana, or sometimes verses from Brahma Vaivarta Purana, or I quoted a verse from the Saprata Tantra. Let's see, where is the Saprata Tantra? There's some questions they have. Our Goswamis sometimes quote verses from the Puranas, which we don't find in the Puranas. One such verse, Bhaktivinoda Thakur often quotes that Sampradaya Vihina Ye Mantra Status Phalam. I have Bhaktivinoda Thakur's original in our library. We have about 4,000 books in our library in Puri. We have an original Bengali, Sanskrit, Bengali characters, Padma Purana, published by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. That verse does not appear in that book. And so some people, they say, what are you guys doing? But, first of all, we can comment that over the hundreds of years or thousands of years, sometimes things have been lost in different manuscripts. And aside from that, we're not the only ones who have found things like it. If you look in the Sri Sampradaya, they credit everything. They have all these different literatures of the Alwars, right? But all of those were given by non-Alwar, one person. and he had this revelation, and he gave all these things. How do you really know that those things were spoken by those different hours? And there's also some verses they quote, which we don't find. In the Madhva Sampradaya, many years ago, I wanted to write something in our journal about the life of Madhvacharyas. So I found these great verses quoted from the Vayupurana, speaking about how Madhvacharya was a combined incarnation of Hanuman, Bhimasena, and Vayu. Wow, that's really cool. We're going to talk about Madhvacharya, we got to quote that, right? But our standard is always, I want to see it in the original Devanagari text, in the original Purana.
Meaning Vyas.
Yeah, I want to see. So I went to great trouble. I got an English because my Sanskrit's not so great. I got an English edition of the book, couldn't find it there. I got a Devanagari edition of the book, couldn't find it there. So then I wrote on a forum of Madhva scholars, at the biggest group of Madhva scholars, and this is their Mahavakya. This verse, these two verses were the most important verses the whole Sampradaya basically is based on. And I asked him where these verses from. I couldn't find them in the Vayupurana. The response I got back in sign language was zero. Nobody could say anything. So it doesn't mean that we disregard the Madhva Sampradaya. It doesn't mean that we disregard this verse, but maybe it was found in some other book or something. So for us, we're not only, we have three principles, which Nityananda does sometimes erroneously, devotees in ISKCON say, Guru Sadhu Shastra Prabhu. But that's no, that's not what it says. What it says is, Sadhu Shastra Guru Vakya Chitteti Koriya Aikya. Nityananda says like that. And it goes in a crumb, the sequence. The first thing is Sadhu. And what is a sadhu? Sadhu is someone who speaks Shastra. And then by the blessing of that sadhu, you come in contact with Shastra. And then by coming in contact with the sadhu and the Shastra, you understand the necessity and the qualification of Guru. And so the three work in that way. And this is true for all different lines of Vaishnavas. And so for us, just as a quick answer to this, I have to think, because I haven't thought about this particular question before, I think you could definitely find some in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam. There's a verse, it's not coming to my mind. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quoted in Benares that so nama-kirtana is part of the verse, if you're familiar with that. That you chant the name which is dear to you, and tears come from the eyes, and all these transformations and things happen. That's Radha Bhakti. And that's the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam. Whereas, therefore, we say, Eti Chamsa Kala Pumsa Krishna's Tu Bhagavan Swayam. That's the Charma Shloka, most important verse of the Bhagavatam, because it speaks about how Krishna is different from Vishnu. And Vishnu worship may be formal and full of Aishvarya, but Krishna worship, as we hear in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, is very, very sweet and inspired, and therefore, in the commentaries in the 10th canto, we hear, and from the book itself, we hear how Krishna was transferred from the mind of Vasudeva to the mind of Devaki, and then he made his avirbhav, his appearance, in the prison of Kamsa. But according to the Bhagavatam, the Jata Karma Samskara, where you cut the umbilical cord, was performed by Nanda Maharaj in Braj, proving that Mother Krishna is actually the son of Mother Yashoda. But that's not such an obvious thing. So we need some commentary from the Acharyas, and they need to illustrate that point. And therefore we follow, out of all the books, perhaps our most important book is Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now you may make a case that the Srimad Bhagavatam is the most important, but I would reply to that we don't really understand the Bhagavatam without Chaitanya Charitamrita. And to take that point a little further, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Sundarbhas of Jiva Goswami, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, the Laghu Bhagavatamrita. If you look at all these literatures of our Goswamis, they're all Bhagavatam. They're giving Anvaya Veti Reka Vyam Yashat Sarat Desarvada, one of the Mula Shlokas in the second canto. says that this is given directly and indirectly. And in all those books, they're all the basis of them is the Bhagavatam. And all those books, they're explaining further about the Bhagavatam. That would be my answer. A little convoluted. I don't have a simple sloka just off of this verse. So nama-kirtana is some answer for that, perhaps. It's a great question, Prabhu. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sorry for such a long answer. Anybody else with anything? Prabhuji?
Krishna Prabhu.
Give them now.
Happy to see you again.
See you.
So, regarding the connection with Gurudev, I have a question. We are being told of the incidents that happened in Vrindavan, where some devotee asked Srila Prabhupada that after he left, he will live in
You can zoom in too.
what will happen to the persons who are reading his books and they desire to get initiation? And then it said that Prabhupada said they can rely on Srila Prabhupada, something in that sense. So I wonder if you could shed some light on how reliable this, how should we see this? What does Srila Prabhupada mean and how can we rely on this?
In our lives, all of us say certain things sometimes which are general things. And then other times we say specific things, and they may seem contradictory. And if you analyze it closely, you can find that with everybody. You may, for example, you may tell your child, don't touch that bottle of bleach. And that's a principle. But then you turn around and tell your wife, no, go buy another bottle of bleach. But he just said, don't touch the bleach. There are certain things we say according to Desha-kala Patra. Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Jayadharma, he says that the Acharya speaks in two ways, one of two ways, Tatkalika and Sarvakalika. Tatkalika means according to time and place, and Sarvakalika means for all time and all place. Srila Prabhupada sometimes said things like, if they just see my books, if they just read the books, if they just touch a book, they can get all perfection. And sometimes he said they don't need initiation even. But then other times, for example, a lecture in 1976, I think it was, in Bombay, Prabhupada said that some people say, this is a word for word quote, some people say, what is the use of accepting Guru? Of course, they have a very bad experience. Prabhupada commented, and Prabhupada said, they may say, I'll just read the book. And Prabhupada went on to explain that you may read Bhagavad Gita 100 times. You may read it 1,000 times, but you won't understand a single word unless you've approached. So that seems completely diametrically opposed to the principle you just mentioned, in which Prabhupada said a number of different times. How do we reconcile both things? And different camps will like different things. Someone who's canvassing for their guru maybe will like the quote that I just gave, that you have to take initiation, what's the use of that? And some of our Ridvik friends, who are our friends, they're chanting, they may like this other statement that you don't need a guru, you just take the book, you can get in. So how do we reconcile both those things? If we understand the principle that Bhaktivinoda speaks about, Chaitanya Charitamrita, of Sukriti, and he speaks about three types, Karma-mukhi Sukriti, Jnana-mukhi Sukriti, and Bhakti-mukhi Sukriti. You may have Sukriti or piety, which will give you karma, sat-karma. You're an honest person. You want to live a good life. You take care of your wife and your children. You never shout at your wife. You never do that. And you pay your bills. You don't speed. You don't drive too fast. You go to Mangalarti every day. You do all that. That's sat-karma. Huh? And Jnana-mukhi Sukriti is some knowledge that you acquire by which you understand Brahman. You understand Aham Brahmasmi, I'm not this body, I'm spirit. But Bhakti-mukhi Sukriti is Unmukhi Sukriti, it may be Agyata Sukriti. Agyata, meaning you've acquired it even unknowingly. Like someone on the Harinam who starts chanting with the devotees. and they're getting some bhakti mukhi sukriti. But what is the fruit of that? It's a long discussion. Jiva Goswami and Bhakti Sandarbha explains that this agyata sukriti is very pious. And to say something really controversial, I'm sorry, but about the fall of the jiva. He said, he gives the example of the mouse that stuck his nose in a ghee wick and caught on fire and it died. And there's another story about a cat that caught a mouse, and the mouse was running around the temple. And that personality went to 𝗤𝗂𝗃𝗃 went to Vaikuntha in this material universe and stayed there for 100 years or whatever, associated with Lord Vishnu. Because the last activity that Jiva soul did was something of bhakti. They were running around the temple, they stuck their face in the ghee wick, and the ghee wick lit up again. But because it was agyata, it was unknowingly done. And how can we go to the spiritual world and be with Krishna just on the basis of sukriti? You have to have some kind of bhakti. So they go there and they stay for 100 years or 50 years or whatever it is. And then they come back again. In the next life, that was a story told from the Vishnu-Dharmotha Purana. Vishnu-Dharmotha Purana describes that in the next life, that mouse became a king. He was really attached to offering lamps. He was very focused on it. That's gyata sukriti. Agyata and gyata. Understand the difference. Agyata means that you're getting some unknowing benefit. Gyata and agyata sukriti gives you some bhakti mukhi sukriti, by which you may go to 𝗤𝗂𝗃𝗃, or you may get some association with a sadhu. That's the best. But it's not enough to go to Nitya Lila. For that begins with gyata sukriti, something unconsciously doing. It's like, to give another example in a personal relationship, someone may get married to a girl they've never met. Maybe it's some legal arrangement. They said, look, I just really want to move to Holland and become a citizen there. And well, here's a list of girls who'd like to get married. Pick out a name. And they pick out a nice name, and they marry someone they've never met before. So that's unconsciously done. It's not very romantic. The girl's not going to appreciate you so much just by doing that. But gyata sukriti is something consciously done. And that's the beginning of bhakti. So that gyata sukriti, you're offering the lamp because I know it's very dear to the Lord. I know in Shastra it's an important thing. And there's a world of difference between those two. So Srila Prabhupada gave both instructions sometimes. Sometimes he would speak about agyata, instructions which were beneficial for common people, because he wanted everyone to go back to Godhead. He wanted to change the world. But other times when he's speaking more about bhakti, he would say things like the quote I just cited, that even if they read the Bhagavad Gita 100 times or 1,000 times, they won't understand the word because they haven't approached Guru. I wrote a long article about this called From the Lips. If you'd like a reminder, I can give you a soft copy. There's a lot to be said about it. Interesting things. Is that helpful?
Yeah, I got one more question about this. The gyata sukriti that you're saying. Actually, when we are connected to the society, when we're connected to the society, we learn, we should be chanting, doing some rules. I really don't want to sound like a certain group of devotees. But how can I mean to say this, when you're knowingly doing chanting or whatever devotional activity, that cannot be called agyata sukriti, I'm thinking. And what else is there that we see around us that Gurudev is actually actively giving to the
Maybe a little before you came also, I mean, I'm sorry, I've been just dumping a whole bunch of verses and ideas and thoughts in you guys, it's a little calorie thick. Jiva Goswami in Kama Sandarbha commentary in 6th canto explains there's two types of chanting, Kevalanam and Sneha Samyuktanam. Kevalanam means common chanting, and that common chanting may be in our Hare Krishna movement. There may be someone who's gotten initiation from Guru, but they haven't gotten sneha. Sneha samyuktana means chanting with affection. That chanting with affection comes when we develop a relationship with Guru. Bhakti stu bhagavat bhakta sangena parijayate. We get bhakti from the devotees. So if we're chanting and we're just doing it, I'm initiated, I'm supposed to be chanting 16 rounds, and that's what they told me. I'm doing it because I'm a member of the society. That may be Kevalanam. It may be just common chanting. It may not be Sneha Samyuktanam. And that's okay. We don't hate Kevalanam. We don't hate any kind of chanting. We're all for all kinds of chanting. But there's a difference. There's a difference between that common chanting and the chanting that someone does when they've come closer to sadhu. They come closer, Upanishad, come close and sit. And they've heard Hare Katha from that person. And Shru Shru Sho Shridhana Shav Asudeva Katha Ruchi, they've gotten some Katha Ruchi by rendering service to that person. That's Sneha Samyuktana. And this other thing, why argue about it? Some people will say, well, I don't believe in your gurus, and I only believe in Prabhupada. Fine, that's fine. But if you're a young lady, and you're not married, and you really, really like to get married, most young ladies really want to get married, it's like the biggest thing in their life. And I tell you, I have got a guy for you. He's incredibly handsome, very, very expert, very wealthy, very muscular, very gentle, very kind, very learned, has a nice family, all good things about him. And you can marry him. Only one small problem. You'll never get to meet him. Would you be satisfied? Some girls would, because they just want some official citizenship. They just want to become part of the thing. And so they'll accept that, that's okay. But I don't find that satisfying. And for me, when we talk about this Ridvik thing, why argue about it? I'm so happy they're chanting. They're doing something. And if they're satisfied with having a relationship with Prabhupada where they can never meet him physically, maybe they have a dream and he comes and tells them some instruction or something, I don't know. But I'm not satisfied with that. I tried that before with Prabhupada and I wasn't satisfied. I want a personal relationship. I want someone to train me, chastise me, encourage me, tell me what to do. I want that thing, and I'm not going to be satisfied with anything less. And that's common sense, that's natural. Most people want a relationship like that. Children, when they're 4 years old, they have an imaginary friend. And they talk to them on the swing, and my imaginary friend's named Gopher, and I like Gopher, and Gopher does this and that, and they're going to this. But they don't go through that within their whole life. If they do, we're going to commit them to an insane asylum. We want to develop personal relationships and deep relationships. To be satisfied, to go deep in bhakti, that's required. So if they're chanting Hare Krishna, it's great. Keep chanting Hare Krishna. And at a certain point, I'm totally confident not to speak down to them or anything, but I'm totally confident that they're not going to be satisfied with that relationship. It's just Prabhupada's my imaginary friend. He's my imaginary guru or something. Prabhupada's there. That's the approach to say imaginary. Prabhupada's definitely there, and we should take shelter of him. But there's a reason we have a parampara. There's a reason we have personal association. Is that helpful? Okay, great question. Very relevant. Thank you. I really like it when we have things in there. Mataji, something? Anandaji, are we in trouble? Are we going?
No, just okay.
Your Kashmir is not going to get mad.
Not yet, he's still dressing up.
So this is in connection to this question.
My hearing's not so good.
This is in connection to the previous question. So you're just saying that how important it is to have a personal connection in this sense with your guru through the parampara. What about the devotees who are initiated but they don't get that much association with their guru? Or what about if their guru leaves their body?
Right. Raghunath Das Goswami is a disciple of who? Anybody know? Chaitanya Charitamrita says Sarupa Raghu. He's the Raghu of Srivas Anga Goswami. But Srivas Anga Goswami is not his Diksha Guru. His Diksha Guru is Yadunanda Acharya. And he mentions it sometimes because there's a formal relationship with them. My Guru Maharaj was once asked kind of a similar question, that who is more prominent, who is more important, the Siksha Guru or the Diksha Guru? And he gave an answer that I liked so much. He said, whoever occupies your heart. And so, this is one point, that Gurudev may manifest in other Vaishnavas, and I may have a deeper relationship with my Siksha Guru than I do with my Diksha Guru. Aside from that, I remember giving a class once in Vrindavan, in Kartik, and I spoke about this principle about the importance of being close to Guru. And afterwards, one brahmachari came with a very similar question. He said, well, how can I be close to my Guru when he's in America? And I'm here in India, and I don't get to see him. And I told him, I spoke a little harshly. I said, please forgive me, but I don't understand why you took initiation from your Guru if you think he's a mundane person. His eyes got big. He said, I don't think he's a mundane person. And I said, well, if you think that mundane space, mundane time can separate you from your Guru, then doesn't that mean that you think your Guru is a mundane person? When my Guru Maharaj left this world, we went to one of Srila Prabhupada's friends, Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, wonderful Vaishnava, in Mayapur, and we said, Maharaj, what should we do? Our Guru is gone, he left. And he gave such beautiful comments. He said, don't think that your Guru is gone. He said, you should think that now he's just in the bushes watching to see what you're going to do. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in one article of Sajjanatoshan in Bengali, he calls it Man Morabhav. He says, your Guru is left, and because you're a Nartha Yukta Vasta, you have Narthas in your heart, you can't see Guru as Sevaka Bhagavan, as the servant of the Lord. You see him for your personal pleasure, and therefore you think he's dead. And Bhaktivinoda says your Guru is not dead, you're dead, you're brain dead, no more above. And so Bhaktivinoda Puri told us, he said, don't think that he's gone, you should think he's just hiding and watching to see what you're going to do. That's the principle of Guru. Guru is always there, and we should have firm faith in that. But it's not something I can just say, I have firm faith. Okay, he said so, so I do. It's not just something I assign to myself, but it's something which we have to cultivate deeply in the heart. And we may not have it. Honestly, the bitter truth is we may not have it. Jiva Goswami speaks about that in Bhakti Sundarbha. He says, what if in the beginning you took initiation from someone thinking that this person's a Mahabhagavat, 𝗤𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, but then later you've come to have some doubts because that faith that we have in Guru, that's our connection with them. If we don't have faith, then how can I function? How can I have inspiration to follow his orders? How can I have inspiration thinking that I'm connected with Krishna? I don't know, is he really bona fide or is he not? So Jiva Goswami says, if that happens to you, and he doesn't say that you've realized, he says you may lose that faith because you don't know, you can't see. If I see someone coming out of a liquor store, my Gurudev with a big bag in his arms, and they think, but if it's Lord Nityananda, and he went in there for some preaching or something, who knows? We should have faith in Gurudev. If we don't have that faith, then what can we do? The Jiva Goswami says, well, in that case, best thing you can do is try to find an eternal associate of the Lord and take shelter. And then perhaps the reader's eyes become a little big. And Jiva Goswami says, and if you can't do that, then at least you should find someone who's a pure devotee. And we do that in our lives. Because intuitively, we all need association, we all need shelter somewhere. And even if we don't feel that with our physical Guru, we find that in other devotees. Therefore, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, in one article in Sajjanatoshan, he says a very beautiful thing. I pray that I may see my Gurudev every year, every month, every week, every day, every hour, every second. I pray that I may see my Gurudev in every person. and that I may see my Gurudev in every animal, in every bird, in every plant, in every river, and every stone. Because if I don't see my Gurudev in everywhere and everything, then I may fall prey to the bad desire to be Guru myself. And this is why people do that. Well, Prabhu, I'm not really qualified, but there's nobody to do it, so Krishna ran out of pure devotees. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. How can you do that? Have faith. The Gurudev is always present. But if we don't see that's real, that's honest. I may not see that, I may not feel that, but associate with the devotees. Cry in the heart. Krishna, give me some realization about my Gurudev. Give me some association with devotees that I do have faith in. Because that association is going to make our life, or break our life, if we associate with non-devotees. Is that helpful? It's a really important question from the heart. Thank you.
I have a connecting question. The question is actually how to come closer and how to connect with Guru. You are speaking about it, but how to really connect with Guru, and how to come closer.
Well, the answer is real simple, right? You just go to Maharaj, will you give me initiation? And if you initiate me, you'll be really lucky. Because not only am I fantastically handsome, I'm also very educated, I'm very rich, and I'm so humble. So if you get me as a disciple, you'll be doing so good. That's not how we go to Guru. And that's not going to be pleasing to Guru. If you meet someone on the street who has that kind of attitude, and is coming to you as a preacher, you're not inspired by that. But what are we inspired by? We're inspired by sincerity. Guru Hadash Ashraya. We were just reading this thing from Jiva Goswami, that the fourth spear in the heart is someone who worships Guru, but they don't worship Krishna. So that's how we come close to Gurudev. We want to understand his heart. Rupa Goswami says, Vishram Guru Seva. Beautiful word, Vishrama. Vishrama has a number of different meanings, one of which is to become one with. I want to become one with my Gurudev. How do I do that? By hearing from him and by rendering service. Pranipat, Krishna, Savior. Jiva Ramanujacharya in his Gita Bhashya commentary explains that three things are required for Shravan Adhikar, qualification of Pranipat, Krishna, and Savior. We should submit ourselves to the speaker. Krishna, we should inquire submissively. And Seva, we should serve both the message and the person. Jiva Goswami speaks about these two ways: we serve the Vani and we serve the Vapu. And serving the Vapu is also important. Gurudev flies from San Francisco to Holland. And he comes here, he's really tired. And you say, Guru Maharaj, I know you're transcendental. You're not the body. So we arranged for a 6-hour class for you right now. And you don't really have any sadhana for him, because that's not important. That's for the body. And no place to rest, and no place to bathe, because Gurudev, you're transcendental. He's not going to be pleased. So we want to come close to sadhu by understanding their heart. Prabhu used to say, if you love me, you love my dog. And so when we see someone loves their dog, we see someone loves something very much, we want to understand that thing. And what is that thing that Gurudev, there may be many different services that Gurudev does, but what is that one thing that's the most important to him? That's Krishna Katha. That's talking about Krishna constantly. So we want to hear that Katha and understand his particular mood, and ultimately which rasa he's in, which sthayibhav he has, and ultimately whether he's a Vishnu Bhakta in Vaikuntha, or he's a Ram Bhakta, or he's this or that. We want to understand that heart of it, but that takes some time to come close to him. And therefore, disciple is not, being a disciple is not a passive thing. It's not just that I take initiation and now I'm finished. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, before I got initiated from my Guru Maharaj, 1993. Guru had gone to Washington, D.C., and I went to Maharaj, and he'd known me for like 10 years, something. I was initiated before. I said, oh, I'm going to get initiated now. He said, oh, initiation means to initiate, to begin something. This is only the beginning. We should deeply understand that. But when we do it in kind of a social context, in an institutional context, because I want to be accepted and have friends and whatever, then we think the initiation is the goal itself. But it's just the beginning. And the purpose of it is to come closer to Guru. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur in Sampradaya in Purport 3rd Canto, he says the purpose of the disciples to be anubhav of the Guru. You want to understand his mood. Now, if you go to any sadhu, any Vaishnava, and say, I'm not a Guru, what is your bhav? Yes, I don't have any bhav. I don't have any bhav. What is? And sadhu wants to hide that. So how do you understand? And Vishwanath says it's like going to a rich man. If you want to understand how much money this person has, you can go up to him and say, Mr. Gates, Mr. Bill Gates, how much money do you have anyway? He doesn't want to tell you, but you look and see what kind of car does he drive? How many cars does he have? What kind of house does he have? How many houses does he have? How many servants does he have? How do the servants dress? And from looking carefully, watching him and seeing all those different signs of his opulence, you can understand something about his wealth. And so in the same way with Sadhu Guru, we want to come close to Gurudev. And come close, we want to see what is his wealth. What is the thing in his heart? But he doesn't want to advertise that. For that, you have to come close to him, spend some time. Is that helpful?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Anything from anybody else?
I have another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you spoke about Yamuna Mata.
About?
Yamuna Mata, that incident about Kirtan. She didn't let in the other Mata. And then later on he spoke about, we need association. You can't do bhajan on your own, otherwise it's not conducive actually for your bhakti. But then, like my Guru Maharaj said, it's not, actually try to find like-minded devotees because that is conducive for your bhakti. So sometimes I have this problem. I can't relate with other devotees too much, so I try to sit down and do my sadhana on my own. But I have some friends who are like-minded, and I like to be with them like that. And my wife lately also said, satsang doesn't mean that we have a lot of devotees around us. Satsang can also mean just one or two devotees who are very, good with you. They inspire you to grow also. Can tell me something more about it?
You have a wise wife.
Yes.
To be respectful to her. Before in my journey coming to Krishna consciousness, my Guru Maharaj once commented, he said, ISKCON means the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Who's really a member, he asked. And he asked, it's someone who's Krishna conscious. And then in front of about 100 devotees, he pointed at me. He said, Madhavananda not yet joined. So when people ask, when did you join? I have to say, well, I'd like to. But I haven't. So anyway, my journey to Krishna consciousness in like 1980, 81, I was trying to find the meaning of life and playing music on the street. And I had come to Austin, Texas. And the devotees, I was sometimes going to temples, I was chanting, and the devotees there convinced me to start chanting japa. Actually, they only had half a mala. They said, we don't have any malas, we have this broken one, it's only 54 beads. You can chant on this twice. I said, okay. So they gave me these beads, and I thought, man, I'm going to go live in a cave. So I went to Mount Lemmon in Arizona, and I was living in a cave for some time, and trying to chant 16 miles. I have to tell you, it was very boring. It was really boring. And so after some time, I left a lot of my possessions there and decided I want to find the devotees. So you're here today with so many wonderful devotees here. I can understand from that at least you have a lot of friends here. And some of them may be Radharani and Gopal Champu said there's three types of friends. That's a whole other Katha. There's the Sakha, the Priya Sakha. Sakha is someone you do things with. Priya is someone who, she says that Paraduka Sapriya is someone who understands the pain, the suffering that you're going through. And the Priya Sakha is someone who does things with you, understands your pain, and doesn't leave you. And those are the kind of friends that we want. And if you have even one friend like that, you're doing really good. If you have two or three, you're a very, very opulent person. And let's not compromise ourselves. We want that. We want that kind of association. But it doesn't mean that we should, I'm not going to associate with all of you because I don't appreciate you. No. We're associating with devotees in this movement. We love them. They're wonderful. And our relationships are wherever they are. They may be deep. They may not be so deep. We want to have deeper relationships. But that's not a cheap thing. My Guru Maharaj wrote a diary every day. We have 35 volumes of his diaries in audio. And on the day that he left this world, his last diary entry to Gopal, and we wrote that, and it was prayer to Gopal every day. So she wrote a Gopal Jew. My dear Gopal, please give me association with like-minded persons. And he was in Mayapur on the day of Bhaktisiddhanta's appearance, going to the GBC meetings and seeing so many friends and whatever, and surrounded by so many disciples, but he's praying like that. And so from that I can understand that it's an active thing that I want to do throughout my life. I always want to have deeper and deeper association. And that's the meaning of our movement. We want to bring Ekaki Amma Nahi Payabala Harinama Sankirtana. We can't do Kirtan on our own. So we want to make more friends and bring them in closer. And bring them closer and closer. That's why I like to have a close circle when we're speaking. And we want those relationships to go deeper and deeper and deeper. But for that, we have to be proactive and not just complain, oh, he's not a good friend. Well, you be a good friend. You be a Priya Sakha for people. Someone who's always there in spite of their problems. And no matter what happens, you won't leave that person. That's a Priya Sakha. And if we qualify ourselves like that, people will come. It said that that people say Prabhu is really hard to find. Nonsense. It's no problem. It's easy. There's millions and trillions and billions. They far outnumber us. So spiritual world is full of them. It's unlimited bona fide gurus. If you want to talk about something hard to find, Sishya Nuri Eka. Try to find even one bona fide disciple. But if I become a bona fide disciple, then I'll find Guru. Krishna will send me Guru, definitely. So the same principle, if I'm a good friend to others, and Krishna will send me good friends. It's not that I just complain, why are you guys being good friends to me? We should be proactive and be appreciative of your wife. You have a thoughtful wife. Okay. Anything from anybody else? Okay. I'm feeling very happy today. Let me just give you a little reflection. That so many devotees came. I'm not real crazy about the seats. I already said that a few times. But I feel a little strange, like an actor on the stage or something. But I feel happy because I can see all of you thought deeply about some of the principles that we're speaking. And there was some nice discussion about these things. And for me, that's a success. I feel very, very good about that. And I really hope these kind of things will deepen your community with each other and deepen your friendships. So go ahead and stop there. We heard that Hiranyakashipu is getting a little agitated. Thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Premanande, 𝗤𝗂𝗍 𝗦𝗺 𝗀 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎 𝗎